Before I tell you this story, you need to understand something about park rangers. We have a saying, 15 years or forever. It means that after 15 years in the service, you either leave or you never do. I thought it was just dark humor, a joke about becoming too attached to the job. I was wrong. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 23 days ago, I completed my 15th year as a ranger in Olympic National Forest. On that exact day, my anniversary, I received a package at the ranger station. Inside was a compass that didn't point north, a handwritten note that said, "It's time," and a photograph. The photograph showed me, standing in a forest clearing I'd never been to, except I wasn't alone. I don't work for the Park Service anymore. And after you hear what I'm about to tell you, you'll understand why. Let's begin. I found my predecessor's journal 3 days after I got that package. It was hidden in the station's basement, behind a false panel in the storage room. Ranger Thomas Henshaw. He'd worked my exact district for 15 years before disappearing in 2008. Official report said he walked off trail during a solo patrol and was never found. His last entry was dated exactly 15 years to the day after he started. It read, "They've asked me to choose. I have 3 days to decide. If you're reading this and you've hit 15 years, they're coming for you next. I'm sorry. I chose the forest." That's when I knew I wasn't losing my mind. I became a ranger to escape my daughter. Not physically. She's gone. Been gone for 6 years. Leukemia. She was 9 years old. Emma loved the outdoors. Every weekend we'd camp, just the two of us, after my divorce. She'd collect pine cones, name the trees, make up stories about what animals were doing when we weren't watching. The week before she went into the hospital for the last time, she made me promise something. "Mom," she said, her voice already weak, "promise me you'll keep going to the forest, even without me. Promise you'll still look for the magic." I promised. 3 months after her funeral, I applied to the Park Service, sold my house in Portland, moved to a cabin 15 miles from the nearest town. I wanted to be as deep in the woods as possible, wanted to be where Emma had been happiest, where I'd been happiest with her. The other rangers thought I was running away from grief. They were right, but I was also running toward something. I just didn't know what yet. The first few years were exactly what I needed. Quiet, purposeful. I learned every trail in my district, every campground, every dangerous ravine and hidden waterfall. I helped lost hikers. I tracked black bears. I did my job, but I also started noticing things that didn't fit. Year 3. I found a child's sneaker on a trail marker 7 feet off the ground. No mud, no wear, like someone had placed it there carefully. Year 5. A hiker showed me footage from his trail camera. 3 frames showed a massive figure walking upright through his campsite at 2 a.m. The Park Service confiscated the SD card. I never saw it again. Year 8, I responded to a missing person, a solo hiker named David Chen, who'd been gone for 4 days. We found him on day 5, sitting by a stream, perfectly calm. He said he'd been invited to stay, but wasn't ready yet. He wouldn't elaborate. The psychiatric evaluation said acute stress reaction, but his eyes looked like he'd seen something that changed him. Year 12, I found symbols carved into trees in Sector 7, not random scratches, deliberate patterns, almost like writing. When I reported it, my supervisor, District Ranger Mike Patterson, told me to file it as elk rubbing and never mention it again. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, "you're getting close to 15 years. When you hit that mark, you'll understand. Until then, do yourself a favor and stop looking so hard." I should have listened. Year 15 arrived last month. It started with the dreams. 3 weeks before my anniversary, I started dreaming about a clearing I'd never seen. Deep, old-growth forest. A circle of ancient cedars surrounding open ground. In the dreams, I'd walk into the clearing and someone would be waiting for me. I could never see their face, but they'd gesture for me to sit, and I would, and we'd sit together in silence while the forest breathed around us. I'd wake up feeling peaceful, more peaceful than I'd felt since Emma passed. The dreams came every night, always the same clearing, always the same figure waiting. 2 weeks before my anniversary, I started finding things on my morning patrols. A hawk feather on my truck's hood, perfectly scented. A circle of smooth river stones outside my cabin door. A bundle of cedar branches tied with grass hanging from my porch light. Gifts. That's what they felt like. But from who? 1 week before my anniversary, I heard the knocking. I was doing a sunset patrol near Cathedral Grove when I heard it. 3 knocks, wood on wood, deep, resonant. Then silence. Then 3 more knocks from a different direction. I'd heard about the knocking. Every ranger had. It was in all the unofficial warnings, all the stories passed around the station late at night. If you hear the knocking, you're being watched. If it follows you, you're being tracked. If it surrounds you, you're being invited. I stood there in the fading light, listening. The knocking moved around me. North, east, south, west. Always 3 knocks, always deliberate. Then it stopped. In the silence that followed, I heard a voice, distant, calling my name. Sarah. Not Emma's voice. Older, deeper. But something about the way it said my name made me feel recognized, known. I ran back to my truck and didn't stop until I was at the station. That night, I found Thomas Henshaw's journal. The journal was obsessive. 15 years of observations, theories, sketches. Thomas had documented everything. Footprints, hundreds of measurements. Sightings, dozens of brief encounters, patterns, migration routes, territorial markers, seasonal behaviors. But the last year of entries were different, more personal, more conflicted. Year 14, month 8. They've started leaving me things. How do they know what I need? Year 14, month 11. Saw one up close today. We made eye contact for almost a minute. It didn't feel like a predator looking at prey. It felt like recognition, understanding. Year 15, month 2. I think they've been watching me specifically all this time. I think they've been deciding about me. Year 15, month 6. Met someone in the forest today. Not a hiker. Ranger James Morrison. Except he's been missing for 8 years. He looked healthy, happy. Said he made the choice and never regretted it. Said I'd understand soon. And then the final entry, the one about choosing. I read that journal 3 times that night. Then I called Mike Patterson. Mike, did you know Thomas Henshaw? Long silence. Yeah, I knew him. Did you know he kept a journal? Another pause. Sarah, what did you find? Everything, the patterns, the encounters, the... Stop! His voice was hard. Don't say anything else on the phone. Meet me at the station. Now. Come alone. Mike was waiting in his office. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Tired. He gestured for me to sit. How much of the journal did you read? All of it. He nodded, pulled out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses from his desk drawer, poured without asking if I wanted any. Then you know, he said. Know what exactly? That we're not really here to manage the forest, Sarah. We're here to manage the boundary between their world and ours. He took a long drink. There are 14 of them in Olympic. Maybe more. We're not sure. They're territorial, but the territories overlap. They've been here longer than the park, longer than the country. This was their land first. The Park Service knows about them. Some parts. The old rangers, people like Thomas, like me, we know because we've lasted long enough. 15 years. That's the threshold. Threshold for what? Mike looked at me. For them to decide if you're worthy. I felt cold. Worthy of what? Of understanding, of being invited deeper, of choosing. Choosing what, Mike? He stood up, walked to the window. Sarah, why do you think rangers disappear? Real answer. I don't know. Because some of them choose the forest. They go deep, live with them, become something else. Not human anymore. Not them either. Something in between. My hands were shaking. That's insane. Is it? Think about it. Think about how many rangers have vanished over the years. How many accidents happen to people who've worked here 15 years or more. We find their gear, their vehicles, but never them. You're saying they're alive? Alive, yeah. Human? That's the question. He turned back to me. Thomas Henshaw is still out there. So is Morrison. So are 11 others that I know of going back 40 years. They chose to stay. They made the crossing, from our world to theirs. It's hard to explain, but after 15 years, if they've been watching you, studying you, they make an offer, they show you something, give you a choice, and if you say yes, he trailed off. What happens if you say yes, Mike? I don't know. I said no. The weight of that hung in the air. When? I asked. 18 years ago, my 15th anniversary. They came to me, showed me the clearing, made the offer. I refused, and I've regretted it every single day since. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Grief, deep, aching grief. Why? I whispered. Because I saw what it could be, what I could be, free of everything, the pain, the loneliness, the weight of being human. They offered me something I didn't know I needed, and I was too scared to take it. What did you see? My daughter, Rebecca. She passed when she was 7. Car accident. I saw her in that clearing, Sarah, playing, laughing. She looked at me and said, Dad, it's okay here. You can stay if you want. And I couldn't. I was too afraid. My breath caught. Emma, the dreams, the feeling of peace. They know, I said quietly. They know about Emma. Mike nodded. They always know. They've been watching you for 15 years. They know everything about you, every loss, every wound. And if they think you're ready, they show you what you need to see. Tomorrow's my anniversary. I know. They'll come for you tonight. I went home, sat on my porch, watched the sun set behind the trees. Part of me wanted to run, get in my truck and drive until I hit the ocean, never come back. But another part, a bigger part, wanted to see, wanted to know, wanted to understand what Emma had meant about the magic. Around midnight I heard the knocking, closer this time, right at the tree line behind my cabin. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. I stood up, grabbed my flashlight, walked toward the sound. The knocking moved, leading me, deeper into the forest, away from the trail, through undergrowth I'd never navigated. For 20 minutes I followed the sound, and then I saw it, the clearing from my dreams. Ancient cedars in a perfect circle, open ground in the center, moonlight streaming down through the gap in the canopy. And standing in the clearing, waiting for me, was the largest creature I'd ever seen. 9 feet tall, broad shoulders, covered in dark, reddish-brown hair. But its face was almost human. Intelligent eyes, watching me, patient. I should have been terrified. I should have run. But I wasn't scared, because standing next to the creature, holding its hand, was a man I recognized. Thomas Henshaw. He looked younger than his photos, healthier. His hair was longer, graying. He wore simple clothes, handmade it looked like, and his eyes were clear, peaceful. "Hello, Sarah," he said. His voice was calm, gentle. You're alive. More alive than I've ever been." He gestured to the creature beside him. "This is what they are. Not monsters, not animals, guardians, teachers. They've been here for thousands of years, watching us, waiting for those of us who are ready. Ready for what? To let go. Of grief, of pain, of being alone, to become part of something older, something better." The creature stepped forward. It moved with impossible grace for something so large. It knelt down, bringing its face level with mine. Up close, I could see details. The texture of its hair, the intelligence in its eyes, the way it breathed, the humanity in its expression. It reached out one massive hand, slowly, carefully, and it touched my face, gentle, the way you'd touch someone you cared about. I started crying. I don't know why. It just felt like being seen, really seen, for the first time since Emma passed. "She's here," Thomas said quietly. "In the forest, in the trees, in the earth. Emma never really left, Sarah. She's part of this place now, and she's been waiting for you. That's impossible. Is it? You've felt her, in the dreams, in the peace you feel out here. She's been guiding them to you, asking them to help you." The creature withdrew its hand, stood up, turned and walked to the edge of the clearing. It stopped, looked back, extended its hand toward me. An invitation. Thomas smiled sadly. "You have to choose. You can go back, finish your career, live your human life, carry your grief until it finally breaks you. Or, or you can come with us. Let go, become something else. You'll never be alone again. You'll understand what Emma understood, what all of us who've crossed understand. What's that? That the forest isn't separate from us. We're separate from it, and we don't have to be. I looked at the creature, at Thomas, at the clearing bathed in moonlight. I thought about Emma, about the promise I'd made, about 15 years of running from grief, about the peace I'd felt in those dreams, about being tired, so tired. If I go, I whispered, can I see her again? Thomas's eyes were kind, not the way you remember, but yes, in a way that matters. The creature's hand was still extended, waiting. I woke up in my cabin at dawn. For a moment I thought it was a dream, but my boots were muddy, my clothes smelled like cedar, and my hand tingled where the creature had touched my face. On my porch table was the compass from the package. Next to it, a note in Thomas's handwriting. You came, you saw. Now you know it's real. You have 3 days to decide. If you choose to stay human, leave the compass at the Cathedral Grove trailhead. If you choose the forest, bring it to the clearing. Either way, there's no judgment, only understanding. I called in sick to work, spent 3 days alone in my cabin, thinking, remembering, feeling. I thought about Emma, about how much she'd loved the forest, how she'd always said it was where the real world was. I'd thought she meant nature, trees and animals and fresh air. But what if she'd meant something deeper? What if she'd sensed what I was only now beginning to understand, that there was another world here, older, wilder, more honest? I thought about my life. What was I returning to? An empty cabin, a job managing boundaries, grief that never fully healed, loneliness that never quite went away. I thought about Thomas, about how peaceful he'd looked, how whole. On the morning of the 3rd day, I made my choice. I drove to the ranger station, walked into Mike's office, put my resignation letter on his desk. He looked at it, looked at me, nodded slowly. You're going? I'm going. Sarah. Mike, I've been alone for 6 years. 6 years of pretending I'm okay, pretending this job fills the hole Emma left. It doesn't. Nothing does. But out there, I paused. Out there, I felt something. For the first time since she passed, I felt like I might be okay again. His eyes were wet. I know. I felt it too. That's why I regret saying no. It's not too late for you. He shook his head. It is. They asked once. I refused. That door closed. But you still have the choice. I left the station, drove to my cabin, packed nothing. What would I need? That night I walked into the forest, compass in hand, heading toward the clearing. I won't tell you what happened when I got there. Some things are too sacred, too personal, too impossible to explain to people who haven't felt what I've felt. But I will tell you this. I'm writing this from a library computer in Port Angeles, using a guest account. I came into town for supplies, something I do once a month now. I look normal. I sound normal. But I'm not the same Sarah who walked into that clearing 4 months ago. I live in the forest now, not in my cabin, deeper, in places that don't appear on maps, with others like Thomas. And with them, the guardians, the old ones. And yes, I've felt her, Emma, not as a ghost, not as a memory, as part of the forest itself, the way sunlight filters through leaves, the way morning mist moves through valleys, the way certain places make you feel inexplicably peaceful. She's there, she's everywhere, and I understand now what she meant about the magic. The magic isn't in the forest. The forest is the magic, and we're part of it. We've always been part of it, we just forgot. Some rangers choose to stay human. Mike did, others don't. Thomas didn't, neither did I. I don't expect you to believe this. I wouldn't have believed it either 15 years ago. But if you're a ranger reading this, and you're approaching your 15th year, I want you to know, the invitation is real, the choice is real. And whatever you decide, it's okay. Just don't do what Mike did. Don't spend the rest of your life wondering, what if? Because I can tell you now, from this side of the boundary, it's worth it. It's worth everything. Last week I stood in that clearing at dawn. A massive creature beside me. I know her name now, though I can't explain how. And as the sun rose, I heard something. Laughter. a child's laughter. Coming from everywhere and nowhere, Emma's laughter. And I knew I'd made the right choice. I'm not lost. I'm not gone. I'm not missing. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, where I've always been supposed to be. Home. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. I know this story is different, stranger, maybe harder to believe than most, but I told you the truth, the real truth, about what happens when you spend 15 years in the deep forest, about what waits there for those who are ready. If this story made you think, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever felt that pull toward the wilderness, that sense that something's waiting for you there. I read every single comment. If you want more true Bigfoot encounter stories that go deeper than the surface, subscribe to Silent Bigfoot Stories and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next story. We upload new encounters every week. Stay safe out there. Or don't. Sometimes getting lost is exactly what you need. Until next time.